I don't know if you remember the programme Frasier. You probably will. It's on reruns all the time and they're showing it on Paramount just now. So Frasier was a character that first appeared, he's a staple in Cheers, a sitcom from the 80s. So if you're young, you'll not remember Cheers, but you'll probably remember Frasier. So Frasier's a psychiatrist and he would drink in the Cheers bar. And one afternoon or one evening he brought in an operant conditioning chamber. So that's what's called or you maybe heard it referred to as a Skinner box. It's called an operant conditioning chamber. And I remember seeing B.F. Skinner's daughter presenting a few years ago at a conference, and she says, don't call it a Skinner box, all right? So it's not a Skinner box, it's an operant conditioning chamber. So basically it's a box where the rat presses, or the pigeon, presses one lever and gets a pellet of food, and presses another lever and gets an electric shock, okay? So Frasier brings the part of the chamber into the bar and puts it up, and there's peanuts in it. So the two kind of barflies, Norm and Cliff, are playing with the box, okay? So they press the one button and they get the peanut and they go, excellent, and then they go, what happens if you press that one? And they get this electric shock and right? So they get an electric shock from it and they continue to press both, despite the fact that and this is the joke, right? One of them is given a peanut and the other is given an electric shock. And Frasier makes a comment that rats learn faster than they do not to press the one with the that gives the electric shock, okay? Right, so these are things that I have, stories and things that I have witnessed where the handler, the dog handler, the owner, the trainer, is behaving exactly the same way as Cliff and Norm were. The preemptive correction is where we give the dog information that if they don't stop doing what they're doing, they're going to get corrected, okay? And it's usually a leash correction or poked in the ribs or a stimulation, so an electric shock with the e-collar. All right, so 3 examples I'll give you where the dog was picking this up faster than the handler was, okay? So the first one was, I used to go to a training club and they trained sports dogs, so Malinois for protection work and working line German Shepherds and all that kind of stuff. And I was speaking to one of the guys and he says, he had a young boy Malinois, and he said, my dog likes everybody else but not me. And I says, how do you work that out? And he says, well, every time I correct him on the prong collar, the dog jumps up and bites me, okay? So he was not picking that up. So he would start, the dog would start doing something that he didn't like. He would correct the dog on the prong collar, and the dog would demonstrate his displeasure by jumping up and biting the guy. And the guy still hadn't put those two together, the same way as Cliff and Norm still hadn't put together that one causes an electric shock, okay? So this poor dog keeps getting corrected in the prong collar, and this clown keeps getting bitten by his dog, okay? Then, same place, different trainer who was one of the trainers at the time, and he had a working line German Shepherd, and little guy with like little man syndrome, and so little man with his big dog, and he was doing something with his dog and the dog growled at him. So the growl is the dog saying, can you stop doing that, I don't like it, and his attitude was, don't growl at me. So the dog growled at him, so the dog gave him a preemptive correction, can you please stop doing that, okay? And he corrected the dog in a choke chain, and the dog jumped up and bit him. So he corrected him again, and the dog then bit him again harder the second time, okay? So there's preemptive corrections going on from the dog to the human, and this guy not learning the same way as Cliff and Norman did, right, okay? Now, what happens with a preemptive correction? It starts giving the dog information that something unpleasant, painful or uncomfortable is about to happen next, okay? That may or may not change the behaviour, but the dog certainly learns. When I hear that noise, that from the guy in the end of the lead, or the person in the end of the lead, it means that something bad's about to happen. And what happens now, that starts adding more stress to the dog, okay? So at a workshop, a scent training workshop years ago, guy working his Malinois, the dog had been heavily corrected with all sorts of aversive training tools. okay? The dog was doing a search, and the instructor, so the instructor, the dog and the handler, or the owner, the instructor got a little bit too close to the dog, and the dog stiffened and glanced at him, okay? So that's a preemptive correction from the dog to the instructor. Can you back off? Now, the owner then recognised that and went to the dog, and guess what happened next? The dog jumped up and nailed the instructor, okay? Because the dog has learned that that nonsense noise means something bad is about to happen, okay? The dog just starts feeling pressure, and the dog lashed out and redirected the pressure that he was feeling onto the instructor, and put the instructor in hospital with stitches to his hand. I mean, it was a hospital, he had to go to casualty and get stitches, okay? So when we're using corrections, it may or may not have an effect on the dog's behaviour, okay? And that's dependent on a variety of things. But what certainly happens, what absolutely happens, is that the dog learns that noise means that thing, or that circumstance means that thing is about to happen, and it now starts adding more pressure into an already tense situation. And if the dog is lashing out and lunging and barking, they're already struggling as it is, okay? So just a few thoughts for you, all right? As always, when I'm talking about this stuff, it tends to bring people out from underneath the bridges, and they want to object and tell me that I'm doing wrong. This isn't your place, okay? This is a place for me to educate people in the way that I see dog training should be. So feel free to keep your comments to yourself, all right? Much love and peace to you.